All right, pistachio lovers, get ready to go nuts because today we are diving deep into the world of pistachio propagation.
Yes, propagation, that's where it all begins, right?
Exactly. And you sent over some really fascinating sources, everything from practical guides for backyard enthusiasts to some serious scientific research.
Now, we have to cover all the bases, right? From the basics to the cutting edge.
Absolutely. So it looks like we'll be exploring all the ways to start your own pistachio tree, from planting humble little seeds
Right.
to the more advanced techniques of cuttings and grafting,
Right.
and even something called air layering, which I have to admit I don't know much about.
Well, get ready to be amazed. Air layering is like pistachio magic.
I do love a little garden magic.
Well, pistachios in general are kind of magical.
Well, absolutely. And to make things even more interesting, I've heard that pistachios have a few quirks that make them a bit more challenging than your average fruit tree.
Oh, definitely. They like to keep us on our toes, that's for sure.
All right, I'm ready for the challenge. Spill the beans. What kind of pistachio peculiarities are we talking about?
Well, for one, pistachios are known for something called alternate bearing.
Alternate bearing.
Yeah, it basically means they have a bumper crop one year
Okay,
and then a much lighter crop the next.
interesting. So it's like they're taking a break every other year.
Exactly. And this can make it tricky to predict their nutrient needs.
I can imagine, especially when it comes to things like potassium.
Yes, potassium is key for pistachios.
Yeah.
It's like a runner needing extra energy for a marathon. Only the pistachios marathon happens every other year.
I love that analogy. So alternate bearing and a love of potassium. What else?
Well, here's another interesting tidbit. Pistachio trees are unisex, meaning you need both a male and a female tree for pollination and nut production.
Oh, wow. So it's like a botanical matchmaking game.
Precisely. And here's the catch. You won't actually know the sex of your pistachio tree until it's around 7 or 8 years old.
7 or 8 years. Wow. That's a long time to wait for a pistachio blind date. I guess that's why understanding the different propagation methods is so crucial.
Absolutely. We want to increase our chances of success, right?
Right. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of growing pistachios, I'd love to know a little more about their history.
Okay.
Where did these delicious nuts come from?
Well, the pistachio's story, it begins in the Middle East, where it's been cultivated for thousands of years.
Really? Thousands of years?
Oh, yeah. And over time, it journeyed along trade routes, reaching Europe and Asia centuries ago.
So these little nuts have seen a lot of the world.
They have. They've traveled far and wide. But here's what's really interesting. While pistachios have a long and rich history in other parts of the world, California is now the pistachio king.
What? Really?
Oh, yeah, producing over 90% of the world's supply.
That's incredible. I had no idea.
Yeah. California's sunny climate must be a pistachio paradise.
I guess so. Okay, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
We still need to figure out how to get those pistachio trees growing in the first place. Shall we start with the most basic method, planting from seed?
Sounds good to me. Let's get those pistachios sprouting.
All right, so what's our first step?
Well, choosing high-quality seeds is key.
Okay.
Those dusty pistachios in the back of your pantry probably won't cut it.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Yeah, we need fresh, raw, and unsalted seeds, ideally from a reputable nursery.
All right, so quality seeds are a must.
Yes. And here's where it gets a little interesting.
Okay.
Pistachios are a bit like bears.
Bears?
Yeah, they need a good winter's nap before they wake up and start growing.
Okay, so we need to, like, tuck them in for the winter.
Exactly. We need to mimic those winter conditions through a process called stratification.
Stratification? Sounds a bit intimidating.
It's not. It's actually quite simple.
Okay, good.
We're essentially tricking the seeds into thinking they've gone through a cold spell by placing them in a cold, moist environment for about 30 to 60 days.
So it's like a spa treatment for pistachio seeds.
You could say that. A little R&R before they get down to business.
I like it. So this cold treatment triggers germination, which can take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks.
Right. Patience is a virtue when it comes to growing pistachios.
All right, I'm ready to embrace my inner pistachio Zen master. So we've got our stratified seeds patiently waiting to sprout. What kind of environment do these baby pistachio trees need to thrive?
Well, draining soil is essential. Pistachios, they don't like soggy roots. A sandy loam with a pH between 7.0 and 8.0 would be ideal.
Got it. Sandy soil, good drainage.
Check. And of course, like any good Californian, Pistachios love the sun.
Of course they do. How much sun are we talking?
They need at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight daily.
Okay, so full sun it is. No, I remember you mentioned earlier that pistachio trees are unisex, and we won't know the sex of a tree for years.
Right.
Does that come into play when starting from seed?
Absolutely. When planting from seed, you're basically playing a pistachio lottery.
A pistachio.
You won't know if you've got a male or a female until much later.
Ah, I see. So how do we increase our odds of winning this pistachio lottery?
Well, it's recommended to plant multiple trees
Okay.
to increase your chances of having at least one of each for pollination.
Ah, so it's a numbers game. Plant more pistachios, increase your odds of a successful pistachio match.
Exactly. But what if you're not the patient type and you want a faster, more predictable way to grow a pistachio tree?
Well, in that case, I'm all ears. Tell me about these faster methods you mentioned.
All right, then let's talk about cuttings.
Okay.
This method involves taking a piece of a healthy pistachio tree
Uh-huh.
and encouraging it to develop its own roots, essentially creating a clone of the parent tree.
So instead of starting from scratch with the seed, we're taking a shortcut by using a piece of an existing tree.
Precisely. This allows you to replicate the characteristics of a specific pistachio variety.
Interesting.
And it's generally faster than waiting for seeds to germinate.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. Talk me through the process.
Our-
How do you actually take a cutting from a pistachio tree?
First, you need to choose a healthy branch
Okay.
with vigorous growth. Aim for a cutting that's about 6 to 8 inches long and has at least 2 to 3 leaf nodes.
Leaf nodes. What are those?
Those are the points on the stem where the leaves emerge. They're crucial for root development.
Ah, so that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Okay. 6 to 8 inches, leaf nodes. Got it. What's next?
We need to be precise and clean, almost like we're performing surgery on our pistachio branch.
Pistachio surgery.
I like it.
Using sterilized tools is absolutely essential.
Right.
Clean cuts minimize the risk of disease and promote faster healing.
I guess it's like giving our pistachio cutting the best possible chance of survival. So clean cuts, sterilized tools, check. What happens after we've made our cut?
Before planting the cutting, we need to do a little bit of pruning.
Oh.
Remove the lower leaves to reduce moisture loss.
Hmm.
We want all the energy focused on root development, not on keeping those extra leaves happy.
Makes sense. Now are we ready to plant our cutting? Not quite yet. This is where rooting hormones come in.
Ooh, rooting hormones. Tell me more.
They can significantly increase your success rate by stimulating root growth.
Okay.
They come in powder or liquid form
Uh-huh.
and contain plant growth regulators. You simply dip the cut end of your cutting into the hormone before planting it.
Sounds easy enough. Are there different types of rooting hormones?
Yes, and choosing the right concentration is important.
Okay.
Too little might not be effective, and too much can actually inhibit root growth.
So it's like a Goldilocks situation.
Exactly. It's best to follow the instructions on the product label carefully.
Okay. So rooting hormones are like pistachio power-ups, but we need to choose the right dosage. So I've got my cutting, I've dipped it in the rooting hormone, I've planted it. Now what?
Now we wait.
Oh, not again.
Patience is key once again.
I'm sensing a theme here.
You got to be patient with pistachios. Keep those cuttings in a humid environment with a temperature between 70 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. It usually takes about 4 to 8 weeks for roots to establish.
Wow. So it seems like patience is a recurring theme in pistachio propagation. Both seeds and cuttings require a fair amount of waiting time. What if I'm looking for something a bit faster than seeds, but also more controlled than cuttings? Something that allows me to choose specific pistachio varieties and hopefully avoid that 7 to 8 year wait to discover the sex of my tree.
Well, then grafting might be just the ticket.
Grafting.
Yeah, it's a more advanced technique,
Okay.
but it offers a lot of control over the final product.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. What exactly is grafting?
It involves joining a scion, which is a piece of stem from your desired pistachio variety, to a compatible rootstock.
Rootstock. Is that like the base of the tree, the part that's underground?
Got it. The rootstock provides the root system, and the scion determines the characteristics of the fruit, like the variety and size of the pistachios.
Ah, so it's like a pistachio Frankenstein, combining the best traits.
You could say that. And choosing the right rootstock is incredibly important. It can influence everything from disease resistance to drought tolerance, and even the size and vigor of the tree. Some popular varieties for pistachio grafting are Kerman and Peters.
Kerman and Peters. Those names do sound familiar. I guess they must be the stars of the pistachio world.
They are widely used in commercial pistachio production.
Cool. So how does the actual grafting process work?
Well, the grafting process itself requires some skill and precision, but it's not as complicated as it sounds.
All right, I'm ready to hear all about this pistachio surgery. Walk me through it.
Okay, so first you'll make a clean, angled cut on the rootstock at about 45 degrees. This creates a larger surface area for the scion to join.
Angled cuts. Interesting. Why is that important?
It helps with nutrient transfer between the rootstock and the scion.
Ah, I see. So it's like creating a better pathway for those nutrients to flow.
Exactly. Next, you'll select a healthy piece of wood from your desired scion variety, making sure it has vigorous growth.
So we're looking for the strongest, healthiest pistachio branch to be our scion.
Exactly.
Eh.
Then you carefully align the scion with the rootstock, ensuring good contact. This is crucial for the graft to be successful.
It sounds like a delicate operation. I can see why precision is key here.
It is. Once the scion and rootstock are aligned, you'll secure the graft with grafting tape or wax
Okay.
to hold everything in place and protects the graft union.
So it's like a pistachio bandage.
Pretty much. It protects the graft union from drying out and helps it heal properly.
Okay, so I've carefully grafted my pistachio scion onto the rootstock. I've given it a nice pistachio bandage, and now I'm patiently waiting for it to heal.
Right.
What happens next?
Well, the aftercare is just as important as the grafting process itself.
Okay.
You'll need to monitor the graft union closely for signs of growth and healing.
What should I be looking for?
New growth emerging from the scion is a good sign that the graft has taken.
Okay.
You'll also want to adjust your watering and fertilization based on the tree's growth stage.
Okay, so baby pistachios need extra TLC.
They do. And of course, protecting your grafted trees from pests and diseases is also important.
Right. We'll have to dive into those challenges a bit later.
We will.
But for now, let's explore our fossil method of propagation. The one that sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. Air layering.
Air layering. I know, it sounds futuristic, doesn't it?
It really does. What is it exactly?
It's actually a rather ancient technique.
Really?
Yeah, but it's less common than seeds, cuttings, or grafting. Air layering involves encouraging roots to develop on a branch while it's still attached to the parent tree.
Wait, so the branch is like suspended in midair?
Essentially, hence the name air layering.
This is fascinating. How does it work?
You start by making a cup on a healthy branch. Then you wrap the cut area with moist sphagnum moss to retain moisture.
Sphagnum, that's that super absorbent stuff, right?
It is. Then you cover the moss with plastic wrap to create a humid environment. It's like creating a mini greenhouse for that section of the branch.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get the picture. So the moss provides moisture, the plastic wrap traps the humidity, and the branch is still getting nutrients from the parent tree.
Exactly.
So clever.
Timing is crucial for air layering.
Okay.
Late spring to early summer, when the tree is actively growing, is the best time to try this method.
So we're working with the tree's natural growth cycle.
Precisely. If done correctly, roots should develop within a few months,
Okay.
and you can then detach the newly rooted branch and plant it as a separate tree.
Wow, that's incredible. Air layering definitely wins the prize for the most fascinating propagation method. It's like botanical magic. Now that we've covered all 4 techniques, seeds, cuttings, grafting, and air layering, I think it's time to face reality
Oh, here it comes.
and talk about the challenges of growing these unique nut trees.
Indeed. Pistachios, despite their deliciousness, can be a bit demanding.
All right. Bring on the pistachio obstacles. What do we need to watch out for?
Well, one of the first things to understand is that alternate bearing, we discussed earlier, those fluctuating crop yields, right? This significantly impacts a pistachio tree's nutrient needs, especially when it comes to potassium.
Right. It's like the tree needs a special diet depending on whether it's running a marathon or just taking a leisurely stroll.
Exactly. And recent research has shown that the optimal potassium levels for pistachios are actually higher than previously thought, particularly during those heavy-on years.
So it's not just about providing enough potassium, it's about timing it correctly to match the tree's alternate bearing cycle.
Exactly. That's where the recent research findings come in.
Interesting.
Knowing how much potassium a heavy crop removes allows growers to replenish those nutrients effectively
Okay.
and maximize their yield.
Fascinating. So it's like we're cracking the code of pistachio nutrition based on their unique growth patterns.
Precisely. Now, in addition to potassium, soil salinity is another major concern for pistachio trees, especially here in California.
Okay, so we've got the potassium puzzle figured out. Now tell me about this soil salinity challenge.
Okay.
What exactly does it mean, and why is it bad for pistachios?
Soil salinity basically means there's a high concentration of salts in the soil. And these salts can interfere with the tree's ability to absorb water. Think of it like this. The higher the salt concentration in the soil, the harder it is for the tree to take a drink.
Ah, so it's like the soil is hogging all the water, leaving the pistachio tree thirsty.
That's a great way to put it. This can lead to all sorts of problems.
Ruffle.
Reduced vigor, stunted growth, and even leaf burn in severe cases.
That sounds rough. Is there anything we can do to combat soil salinity?
Absolutely. The key is to manage it proactively. There are ways to measure soil salinity,
Okay.
and then you can adjust irrigation practices, use salt-tolerant rootstocks, and even apply soil amendments to improve drainage and reduce salt buildup.
So it's like a pistachio spa day for the soil, pampering it to keep those salt levels in check.
You could say that. Now we've tackled alternate bearing, potassium, and soil salinity. But unfortunately, our pistachio journey isn't over yet. There's another challenge lurking in the shadows: pests and diseases.
Ugh, pests and diseases. The bane of every gardener's existence. All right, lay it on me. What kind of pistachio enemies are we dealing with?
Well, on the pest front, we've got a whole cast of characters. Ground squirrels, rabbits, voles, mice, gophers, and even birds.
Wow, that's quite a lineup. What kind of damage do they cause?
They have their own unique ways of causing trouble.
Oh, I bet they do.
Ground squirrels, for example, are notorious for climbing trees and munching on pistachios at all stages of development.
Seriously.
Oh, yeah. They'll even collect and store nuts in their burrows.
Sneaky little thing.
They are.
Yeah.
Rabbits, on the other hand, can cause severe damage to young trees by removing bark and girdling the trunk.
Girdling. What does that mean?
It means they chew all the way around the trunk,
Oh, no.
disrupting the flow of nutrients and water.
Ouch. That doesn't sound good. What about those other critters, the voles, mice, and gophers?
They can damage the bark and girdle trees as well, but they tend to do their dirty work underground, making it harder to detect.
So we've got enemies above ground and below ground. What about the air?
Yes. And then, of course, we have the birds,
Right.
who are always after a tasty pistachio snack.
So we've got ground attacks, underground attacks, and aerial attacks. Our pistachio trees are under siege. What can we do to protect them from this pistachio pest army?
Well, there are a few practical strategies. Removing brush piles and debris around your trees helps deter ground squirrels from making burrows nearby. Fencing or trunk guards can protect young trees from rabbits. And netting can be effective against birds.
So it's like building a pistachio fortress.
Exactly. Now let's shift our focus to the disease front.
Okay.
Pistachios are susceptible to several major diseases,
Like what?
including Phytophthora root rot, Alternaria late blight, powdery mildew, and verticillium wilt.
Okay, those names sound serious. Tell me more about these pistachio ailments.
Let's start with Phytophthora root rot.
Okay.
It's a soil-borne fungal disease that attacks the roots,
Uh-huh.
weakening the tree and hindering its ability to absorb water and nutrients.
Ah, so it's a double whammy. It attacks the roots and then prevents them from doing their job.
You got it. Alternaria late blight, on the other hand, affects the leaves and nuts, causing brown lesions and potentially reducing yield.
Lesions. That sounds nasty.
They can be. Then there's powdery mildew, which, as the name suggests, causes a white, powdery substance to appear on the leaves.
Powdery mildew. I've seen that on other plants. Not pretty.
Not at all. And finally, we have verticillium wilt, which can lead to wilting, yellowing, and even death of the tree.
Okay, so we've got root problems, leaf problems, and even potentially fatal wilting. It seems like pistachios are prone to a whole host of health issues. Are there any preventative measures we can take to keep our trees healthy?
Absolutely.
Great.
Proper irrigation is crucial for preventing Phytophthora root rot. Avoiding overwatering and ensuring good drainage can make a big difference.
Okay, so no soggy roots.
Exactly. Fungicides can be used to control Alternaria late blight and powdery mildew.
Fungicides, noted.
And for verticillium wilt, choosing resistant varieties and practicing good sanitation, like removing infected plant material, can help reduce the risk.
So it's like boosting the tree's immune system and keeping its environment clean.
Precisely. Now, before we move on, there's one more fascinating detail I wanted to share with you about pistachio health.
I'm all ears. Hit me with it.
Remember how we talked about boron being important for pollination success?
Vaguely. Refresh my memory.
Well, research has shown that boron levels below 120 parts per million can lead to an increase in blank nuts.
Blank nuts. You mean pistachios without any nut meat inside?
Exactly. It's a bit of a mystery why this happens. But it highlights the importance of ensuring adequate boron levels for optimal pistachio production.
Wow, that's incredible. I had no idea so many factors were involved in growing healthy pistachios.
It's quite a journey, isn't it?
It is. From a tiny seed to a mature, nut-bearing tree, there are so many challenges and triumphs along the way.
That's for sure. But that's what makes it so rewarding, right?
Absolutely. It seems like we've covered a lot of ground in just this first part of our pistachio deep dive.
I know, right?
I feel like I've already learned so much, but I'm definitely ready for more.
Well, good, because we've got a lot more to explore.
Welcome back to our pistachio deep dive. Last time we were talking about, all the different ways to propagate pistachios and those challenges they face.
Right, right. It's a journey for sure.
It is, but now that at least we've started getting those baby trees in the ground, I'm kind of curious what happens next. How do these trees actually grow and produce those, delicious nuts we all love?
Well, pistachios, they're really fascinating trees
Okay.
with some pretty unique growth habits.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
They typically reach a height of 20 to 30 feet
Hmm.
with a spreading canopy.
So they're not exactly towering giants, but, definitely substantial trees.
Right. And their root system is quite extensive,
Oh.
spreading wide and deep.
Interesting.
That's why, well-draining soil is so crucial.
Right. We don't want those roots sitting in water.
Exactly. Now, speaking of how pistachios look, I remember seeing pictures of pistachio orchards in the winter,
Uh-huh.
and they look almost bare.
Yeah, actually, is there a reason for that?
Yes. Pistachios are deciduous trees, meaning they lose their leaves in the fall.
Ah, so they kind of take a winter break just like a lot of other trees?
Exactly. This dormant period is essential for their health,
Okay.
allows them to conserve energy and prepare for the next growing season. And speaking of the next growing season, that's when things get really interesting with pistachios. It's flowering time.
Okay, so let's talk pistachio flowers. I have to admit, I don't really, picture what a pistachio flower looks like.
Well, they're not, the showiest flowers.
Right.
They're actually quite small and subtle.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Pistachio trees have separate male and female flowers,
Uh-huh.
which is why we need both types of trees for pollination.
Ah,
So
right. Back to that pistachio matchmaking game we talked about earlier. So when do these trees typically flower?
it varies, depending on the variety and the
Yeah.
climate. But generally, pistachio trees, they bloom in the spring between, say, March and May.
Okay, spring blooms. Got it. So the wind carries the pollen from the male flowers to the female flowers.
Right.
And if all goes well, the female flowers develop into pistachios.
Exactly. Pollination is absolutely crucial for nut development. Without it, those female flowers, they won't turn into those delicious nuts we're after.
So it's a bit like a delicate dance, right?
Yeah.
Between the wind and the trees, hoping for that successful match. Are there any ways to make sure pollination is successful?
That's a great question because you're right. Wind pollination, it can be a bit unpredictable, but, growers have come up with some pretty clever strategies to improve those odds.
Oh, like what?
One method is to plant male trees strategically throughout the orchard, ensuring that pollen can reach as many female trees as possible.
Okay, that makes sense.
Another technique is to use large fans to, help circulate the pollen.
Wow. So it's almost like we're playing matchmaker for the pistachios, using wind and technology to help them find their perfect partners.
Exactly. So let's say pollination is successful. What happens next? How does that, tiny flower transform into a pistachio nut?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. It's kind of hard to imagine those little flowers turning into, the harsh-shelled pistachios we buy at the store.
I know, right? It's pretty amazing. Well, once a female flower is pollinated, the ovary begins to develop into a fruit, which we know is the pistachio nut.
Okay.
Starts out small and green, and then it gradually enlarges as the shell hardens.
Right. Those pistachio shells are notoriously tough to crack.
They are. That hard shell, it protects the developing nut meat inside.
Makes sense.
As the nut matures, the hull, which is the fleshy outer covering, begins to change color.
So that's why pistachios in the shell are often reddish or yellowish.
Exactly.
That's the hull, not the shell itself.
You got it. That color change, it's a sign that the nuts are ripening.
Okay.
And eventually, as the nut reaches, peak ripeness, the hull splits open, revealing the pistachio nut inside.
Okay, so the hull splitting is like a signal flare. It's telling us that those pistachios are ready for harvest.
Exactly. In commercial pistachio orchards, they often use mechanical shakers to harvest the nuts once the hulls have split.
Mechanical shakers, that sounds intense.
It is. Imagine a giant machine, shaking the pistachio trees until those ripe nuts rain down. It's quite a sight. But if you're growing pistachios at home, you can simply hand-pick the nuts once they fall into the ground.
So either a vigorous shake or a gentle hand pick, depending on the scale of your pistachio operation.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned the whole color changing and splitting open as signs of ripeness. Are there any other ways to tell if a pistachio is ready to harvest?
Yeah. You can gently squeeze the hull.
Yeah.
If it gives slightly, that's a good indication that the nut is mature.
Okay.
It's similar to how you'd test the ripeness of a peach or an avocado.
Okay. Whole color, whole splitting, and a gentle squeeze test.
Got it. So we've harvested our pistachios. What happens next? Are they ready to eat?
Not quite. Freshly harvested pistachios need to be dried to prevent spoilage and preserve their quality. Drying, it reduces the moisture content, making them more shelf-stable.
That makes sense. How are pistachios typically dried?
They can be sun-dried, which is a traditional method that often imparts a unique flavor,
Okay.
or they can be mechanically dried using specialized equipment.
Sun-dried pistachios, that sounds delicious. I imagine they have like a more intense flavor like sun-dried tomatoes.
They often do. Sun-drying is a slower process, but it can really enhance the flavor of the nuts.
Interesting.
Once the pistachios are dried, they're hulled, which means that the outer shell is removed to reveal the, green pistachio kernel inside.
Ah, so that's how we get those beautiful green pistachios we see in the store.
Exactly. And after hulling, the pistachios are sorted, graded, and then they're ready to be roasted or salted according to preference.
So it's quite a journey from tree to table.
It really is.
All those steps, from planting to pollination to harvesting and processing. It's amazing to think about all the care and effort that goes into producing those little nuts that, we just kind of mindlessly enjoy as a snack.
I know.
Mm.
It's really incredible when you think about it.
It is. Speaking of snacking, I'm curious about the nutritional value of pistachios. We've talked about how important potassium is for the trees themselves.
Right.
But what about for us humans? What kind of nutritional punch do pistachios pack?
Well, pistachios are often called a nutritional powerhouse,
Okay.
and for good reason.
Okay, I'm already impressed.
They're a great source of protein, fiber, healthy fats, and a variety of vitamins and minerals.
So they've got it all.
Pretty much. One of their standout features is their high content of monounsaturated fats, which are the good fats that can help lower bad cholesterol levels.
Heart-healthy pistachios. I like it.
They're also a good source of vitamin B6, which is important for brain function and metabolism.
So pistachios are good for our hearts and our brains. Is there anything these nuts can't do?
And let's not forget their antioxidant power. Pistachios are packed with antioxidants which help protect our cells from damage.
Wow. So they're delicious, they're good for our hearts and our brains, and they're packed with antioxidants. Pistachios are officially my new favorite snack.
I'm telling you, they're a great choice.
Yeah.
And here's another interesting fact. Did you know that pistachios are one of the lowest calorie nuts?
Really? That's even better.
So they're healthy, delicious, and relatively low in calories. What's not to love?
Seriously. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I wanted to circle back to something we briefly mentioned earlier, pistachio varieties.
Ah, yes.
I'm curious to learn more about, the different types of pistachios. Are there certain varieties that are especially popular or unique?
There are. Kerman is the most widely grown variety in California
Okay.
and around the world. It produces large, flavorful nuts that are, prized for their quality.
German. That name rings a bell. I guess it must be the pistachio all-star.
It is. Another popular variety is Peters, which is known for its early ripening and high yield.
Early ripening, that's a plus for impatient pistachio eaters like myself.
Right. But beyond these commercial giants, there's a whole world of lesser-known pistachio varieties,
Oh!
each with its own unique characteristics.
Ooh, I love discovering hidden gems. Tell me more about these pistachio underdogs.
Well, there's Golden Hills, for example,
Hmm?
which produces nuts with a distinctive golden hull color.
Golden pistachios, how beautiful.
They are. And then there's Lost Hills, which is known for its exceptionally large nuts.
Lost Hills giant pistachios. I'm adding those to my pistachio bucket list.
They're definitely worth seeking out.
Yeah.
Now, while the variety of the pistachio itself is important, we can't forget about the rootstock.
Right. We touched on rootstocks briefly when we were discussing grafting, but remind me why they're so important.
Well, the rootstock, it's like the foundation of the tree.
Okay.
It influences everything from disease resistance and drought tolerance to the size and vigor of the tree.
Wow.
Choosing the right rootstock can make a huge difference in the overall health and productivity of your pistachio tree.
So it's like matchmaking again. But this time, it's about finding the perfect pairing between the pistachio variety and the rootstock.
Exactly. Some popular pistachio rootstocks include Pistachio atlantica, which is known for its drought tolerance,
Okay.
and Pistachio terebensis, which is valued for its resistance to certain soil-borne diseases.
It's amazing to think about all the factors that go into growing a successful pistachio tree.
Right.
From choosing the right variety and rootstock to understanding pollination, harvesting, and processing,
Uh-huh.
there's just so much to learn.
It's a fascinating journey, and we've only just scratched the surface. There's a whole world of knowledge and history behind these little nuts.
Well, I can't wait to delve even deeper in part 3. What other pistachio secrets are you going to reveal?
Be sure to join us for part 3, where we'll explore the cultural and historical significance of pistachios from their ancient origins to their journey across continents.
Ooh, a pistachio history lesson. I'm already intrigued.
Hmm.
Until then, happy pistachio snacking. Welcome back, pistachio fans. So we've explored all the ins and outs of, actually growing pistachios. Yeah.
Right, from seed to tree.
Yes. But I'm still curious about those early days you mentioned, like the ancient origins of the pistachio.
Yep.
Can we go back in time a bit and explore that?
Absolutely. Pistachios, they have a rich and fascinating history
Okay.
that spans, thousands of years and multiple continents.
Wow.
As we mentioned earlier, their journey begins in the Middle East, where they were a prized food source as far back as 7000 BC.
7,000 BC. Wow, that predates any written history I know of.
I know, it's incredible.
It's hard to even imagine what life was like back then, but it's amazing to think that pistachios were like part of the human diet for so long.
I know. It's really remarkable.
What made them so valuable to ancient civilizations?
Well, for one, they were a reliable source of nutrition in arid regions.
Okay.
Imagine a landscape with limited food options. Those hardy little pistachios packed with protein, fiber, and essential nutrients would have been a true lifesaver.
Right. A true desert treasure.
Exactly.
But it seems like they were more than just a practical food source, right? I remember you mentioned something about pistachios being associated with royalty.
Yes, they weren't just a staple food. They were often associated with wealth, health, and even royalty. In ancient Persia, for example, pistachios were seen as a symbol of good luck and prosperity.
Okay.
They were often given as gifts during special occasions.
So, like the pistachio equivalent of a four-leaf clover.
Exactly. And speaking of powerful rulers,
Okay.
legend has it that the Queen of Sheba was such a big fan of pistachios that she declared them a royal food, forbidding commoners from growing them.
Wow, talk about a pistachio monopoly.
Right.
It seems like these little nuts had quite a reputation.
They did.
But eventually they did make their way out of the Middle East, right?
They did. As trade routes expanded, pistachios, they began to spread beyond their ancient homeland.
Okay.
They made their way to Europe through the Roman Empire around the 1st century AD,
Okay.
and quickly became a popular snack among the Roman elite.
I can just imagine those Roman emperors snacking on pistachios while discussing matters of the empire.
Right?
I wonder if they had, like, pistachio-flavored togas.
Who knows? Perhaps. And from Rome, pistachios continued their westward journey, reaching Spain and eventually becoming a staple in Mediterranean cuisine.
So those delicious pistachio pastries and desserts we see today, those have roots that go back centuries.
Exactly. Pistachios have been woven into the culinary tapestry of the Mediterranean region for generations.
Wow.
But their journey didn't stop there.
Oh.
They also traveled eastward along the Silk Road, reaching China and India centuries ago.
The Silk Road. That legendary trade route connecting east and west. It's amazing to think about those caravans, carrying pistachios alongside silks, spices, and other precious goods.
It is, and pistachios were just as prized in the East as they were in the West. They were incorporated into Asian cuisine, adding their unique flavor and texture to stir-fries, noodles, and even ice cream.
Pistachio ice cream, my personal favorite. It seems like no matter where they traveled, pistachios were always welcomed with open arms and mouths.
They truly are a universally beloved nut.
They are.
Now, we've traced their journey from the Middle East to Europe and Asia, but their adventure didn't end there.
Oh, where else did they go?
Eventually, they made their way to the Americas.
Ah, yes. You mentioned that California is now the pistachio powerhouse of the world, but that's a relatively recent development, right?
It is. Pistachios were first introduced to California in the mid-19th century, but it wasn't until the 1970s that they really took off as a major commercial crop.
So California's pistachio dominance is like a 20th century phenomenon.
It is.
What sparked that pistachio boom?
Well, a few things came together. California's climate, with its hot, dry summers and mild winters, turned out to be perfect for pistachio cultivation.
Okay.
And some visionary growers, they recognized this potential and dedicated themselves to establishing a thriving pistachio industry.
So it's a combination of nature and human ingenuity. That's a recipe for success in any field.
It is. And today, California produces over 90% of the world's pistachios.
Wow.
It's a testament to the hard work and dedication of those pistachio pioneers who saw the potential in these amazing nut trees.
It's truly an inspiring story, and it's amazing to think that, those little pistachios with their ancient history and global journey have become such a beloved snack around the world.
I know, right?
As we wrap up our pistachio deep dive, I have to ask, what surprised you the most during our exploration?
That's a good question.
What really stood out to you?
Well, for me, it was realizing just how diverse the world of pistachios is.
Really?
Oh, yeah. From the variety of pistachio trees themselves, with the different whole colors and nut sizes and growth habits, to the range of rootstocks that influence their resilience and productivity, it's clear that there's, a whole pistachio universe out there to explore.
Right. It's not just a one-size-fits-all nut. There's a pistachio for every taste and every growing condition.
Exactly. And beyond the botanical diversity, I was also captivated by the cultural significance of pistachios throughout history.
Uh-huh.
They've been symbols of good luck, prosperity, health, and even royalty.
Wow.
It's fascinating to see how these little nuts have been woven into the cultural fabric of so many societies.
It seems like pistachios are more than just a food. They're a story that connects us to the past, to different cultures, and to the natural world.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect way to summarize our pistachio adventure. They truly are a remarkable nut with a rich history and a bright future.
Well, I have to say this has been one of my favorite deep dives yet. I've learned so much, and I'm definitely feeling inspired to go out and, plant a pistachio tree of my own.
I hope you do.
Or at least stock up on some pistachios for snacking.
Yes. To our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this journey into the world of pistachios as much as we have.
We've had so much fun.
We encourage you to savor those delicious nuts, appreciate their rich history, and maybe even consider starting your own pistachio growing adventure.
Until next time, happy pistachio discoveries.